Welcome to Cinebuster, the YouTube channel that tells the real stories behind the cars on and off screen. And today, every single vehicle on this list has 18 wheels. The trucks of American cinema are the most overlooked category of movie vehicle in the enthusiast community. Everybody's heard of the Bullitt Mustang and James Dean's Little Bastard. Nobody asked where the kings of the road ended up. Today, we are asking 10 trucks, lost, found, scrapped, restored, and in one case, sitting on a cliff bottom in the California desert. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And now, lights, camera, action. Truck number 10. We are opening with the most important truck in the history of American cinema and saving the full story for number 1 where it belongs. But it earns a mention at number 10 because the story of how many trucks were actually involved in Duel is one of the most misunderstood production histories in trucking culture. Most people think there was one truck. There were 3. The original 1957 Peterbilt 281, the one Spielberg cast like a lead actor, selecting it specifically for its long hood and split windshield that gave it a face, progressively uglying it with oil and grease and fake dead insects on each shooting day, went off the cliff on the final day of the 11-day shoot. Gone. A backup 1960 Peterbilt 281 with a Cummins engine was removed from production on that same final day and survived. And when Universal wanted a theatrical release longer than 74 minutes, a 1962 Peterbilt 351 was sourced for the additional scenes shot in 1972. The full story of who found that surviving truck, how long it sat, and where it lives now is the number 1 entry on this list. Stay with us. Truck number 9. White Line Fever is a 1975 Columbia Pictures trucking film starring Jan Michael Vincent as Carol Jo Hummer, a Vietnam veteran who comes home, takes out a bank loan to buy a truck, and refuses to haul illegal cargo for the corrupt syndicate that has taken over the local industry. The result is a film full of beatings, road violence, and one of the most satisfying final images in the genre. The Blue Mule demolishing the glass corporate logo of the company that spent the whole film trying to break him. The Blue Mule is a 1974 WT9000 cabover rig with a 350 NTC Cummins turbo diesel engine, purchased as a repossessed truck on a used lot. The salesman threw in a custom blue and white paint job with the name Blue Mule lettered on the cab to seal the deal. Simple transaction. Classic setup. Ford Motor Company contributed a separate $100,000 promotional truck, also painted as the Blue Mule, to tour the country at the film's release through 6,000 Ford dealerships, alongside Lee's Clothes and Schlitz Brewing. That truck was pure marketing. The Screen Truck was the real one, and the Screen Truck's post-production whereabouts are completely undocumented. No auction record, no museum, no collector claim, no forum post with a VIN confirmation. Jan Michael Vincent's own story became increasingly tragic in the years after the film. Drugs, alcohol, multiple arrests, the loss of a leg, his death in 2019, and whatever happened to the truck that gave his best performance its most important prop has never been publicly established. The Blue Mule drove out of the Arizona desert at the end of the filming in 1975. And has not been publicly seen since. Truck number 8. 3 Kenworth W900As were used in Smokey and the Bandit. 2 were 1974 models, identifiable by the silver Kenworth emblems on the grille. 1 was a 1973 model with the gold 50-year anniversary emblem. All 3 carried the same coffee brown and gold paint. The Hobbs trailer, 48 feet long, hand-painted on both sides by Texas artist David Freeman with a stagecoach robbery mural, was a non-operational refrigerator unit. No fuel tank on the underside. Unit never heard running. It was purely a visual prop, and it was one of the most visually arresting trailer designs ever committed to film. The 3 Kenworth tractors are a genuine cold case. A private investigator was hired by at least one enthusiast over several years of searching without results. The trail has remained cold despite the film grossing over $300 million worldwide. and becoming the second highest-grossing domestic film of 1977. The Mule trailer is a different story. It was eventually found sitting on the property of Riverwood Studios in Sonoya, Georgia, the facility where The Walking Dead was filmed, and appeared in Season 7, Episode 10 of that series, identifiable to anyone who knew what they were looking at. The truck pulled that trailer across the American South for an entire film. The trailer outlasted the trucks in the public record by several decades. Truck number 7.
Roger, Cottonmouth, I got a copy on you. I'm a 343, needing a bearer for it. Come on.
Convoy was directed by Sam Peckinpah, grossed over $46 million against a budget of roughly $6 million, and starred Chris Christopherson as Martin Rubber Duck Penwald, the reluctant trucker who accidentally becomes the face of a nationwide protest movement. The truck fleet used across the production included 4 Mack RS Series trucks, one 1977 RS 712 LST as the primary hero and promotional truck, one 1973 RS 797 LST used for stunts that was left as scrap, and 2 RS 731 LST models. Mack Truck Corporation received a grateful acknowledgement in the end credits and were deeply involved in the production. The hero RS 712 LST had the most interesting post-production fate of the 4. After filming, it was returned to Mack, fully restored to showroom condition, and then sold, at which point it was converted into a dump truck and disappeared into a working life. A film car that Mack had restored to pristine condition that had been the promotional face of one of the most popular trucking films ever made was put to work hauling loads, and it hasn't surfaced publicly since. The second unit, RS 731 LST, had a better ending. Anthony Fox of Rome, Georgia found one in private hands and preserved it, complete with the original Trailmobile tank trailer, including the explosive charge points used in the bridge sequence, still visible on the underside of the tank. Fox showed the rig at the 2017 Southern Classic Truck Show. The National Museum of Transportation in St. Louis confirmed they were receiving the restored second unit truck and trailer for display in late 2023. Half the fleet found, half the fleet gone. Truck number 6. We covered the full story of the over-the-top trucks in a dedicated Cinebuster episode. Link is in the description. But the 1987 Volvo White WIM 64T earns its place here because its journey is one of the most remarkable in this list. Sylvester Stallone's driving truck for the desert sequences of Over the Top had a V8 92 Detroit diesel, an automatic transmission, and an orange and black custom livery. Stallone was paid $12 million to make the film, the highest salary any actor had ever received at that point, for a film that grossed $16 million total. The entire domestic run barely cleared his fee. The truck, at least, had a better second act than the box office did. After filming, Stallone kept the truck personally for a period of time, then donated it to a trucking school in Denver, Colorado. Where it went from there is the gap that took years to fill. In April of 2020, the truck was found sitting in a field in Tennessee. Not stored, not displayed, in a field. As of early 2023, it was under active restoration in Canada. A truck that drove Sylvester Stallone through the American desert in a $12 million arm wrestling film, found in a Tennessee field 40 years later, being restored by a Canadian. The arc of this vehicle is more compelling than the film it came from. Subscribe to Cinebuster now. 5 trucks down, 5 to go, and the best ones are still coming. Truck number 5. Jack Burton doesn't drive a semi-truck because it makes narrative sense to drive one into a Chinatown alley in the middle of the night. He drives one because he's Jack Burton, and Jack Burton drives a Pork Chop Express. The truck is a 1985 Freightliner FLC 120, and it is as much a character in Big Trouble in Little China as Kurt Russell or James Hong. John Carpenter directed. The film was released in 1986, pulled after 6 days, and spent the following 3 decades being correct about itself. It is now the cult film that everyone was supposed to see when it came out, and nobody did. The truck survived the film's commercial failure, considerably better than Fox's marketing department survived the follow-up meeting. The Pork Chop Express was eventually acquired by George Matthews, a collector from England's South Coast, who tracked it down through a Facebook group. Matthews already owned a Kenworth W900 tribute to Convoy and a Mack RS700 tribute to Smokey and the Bandit. He was not casually collecting. He found the Freightliner, confirmed it as the screen-used truck, imported it to the United Kingdom, and brought it out in full Pork Chop Express livery at the Great Dorset Steam Fair. Star Car Hire UK listed as an original production vehicle available for display and hire. A truck that Jack Burton himself described as having a 6-liter engine, 300 horsepower, and 37,000 miles on it, is currently in the care of a dedicated British enthusiast who made it his business to find the thing. Jack would approve. Truck number 4.
The Ritz truck.
Black Dog is a 1998 action film that the critics buried and the trucking community has quietly appreciated ever since. Patrick Swayze plays Jack Cruz, an ex-con and veteran trucker who takes a dangerous off-books haul from Atlanta to New Jersey and discovers he is carrying illegal weapons. Randy Travis and Meatloaf co-star. Swayze turned down Con Air to make this film, which in retrospect is a decision that says something important about where his priorities were. He also did something that most actors who play truck drivers do not do. He went to actual truck driving school and earned a real Class A commercials driver's license before filming began. He started driving trucks as a teenager to help his grandfather. He knew what he was doing behind the wheel. The truck is a 1995 Peterbilt 379, old enough to be chosen by the character to avoid drawing attention, capable enough to carry the film's action sequences. After filming wrapped, Swayze bought the Peterbilt 379 personally. He owned it. The man who turned down Con Air to drive a truck in a movie he believed in liked the truck enough to take it home when the job was done. Swayze died in 2009. What happened to the Peterbilt 379 after his estate was settled has not been publicly documented. No collector has confirmed ownership. No auction handled it. No museum has it on display. A screen-used Peterbilt 379 personally owned by Patrick Swayze, from the last legitimate entry in the American trucking film genre, is sitting somewhere completely untracked. Swayze bought it. After that, nobody knows. Truck number 3.
DJ McKay and his best friend Bear. He just keeps on moving.
BJ and the Bear ran for 3 seasons on NBC from 1979 to 1981 and starred Greg Evigan as Billy Joe McKay, a freelance owner-operator who traveled the country with his pet chimpanzee Bear in a red and white Kenworth K100C Aerodyne cabover. The show was created by Glenn Larson, the same man who created Knight Rider, and it was born at the peak of the American CB radio and trucking craze. Kenworth provided a new truck each year of the production, meaning 5 total were built for the show across 3 seasons. 2 1978 K100C Aerodynes, 1 1979, and 2 1980 models, all red and white, all cabover, all carrying a chimpanzee in the passenger seat for the close-up work. One of the 1978 K100C Aerodynes was purchased from Universal in 2005 by a collector named Craig, who lives in Australia and keeps the truck in Pennsylvania. Nobody has publicly seen it in years. The orange trailer that went with it was sold off by Universal in 2000, along with Knight Rider's trailer. Whereabouts on both are unknown. One of the 1980 K100C trucks was found sitting in a field in Douglasville, Georgia in 2007 by Mike Johnson. Johnson's discovery eventually led to Craig and Paul Sagehorn of Sparta, Wisconsin, purchasing and restoring it. And during the restoration, under rust near the fifth wheel, they found the inscription BJ and the Bear by WS. That is the truck Greg Evian drove in the final season of the show. Craig Sagehorn has hauled potatoes to Miami in it. A second 1980 truck has since been confirmed in Florida, with a serial number 1 digit from the Sagehorn truck. 3 of the 5 located in some form. 2 still completely unaccounted for. Truck number 2.
Hey, you remember that old road we used to use when we was working with Sharky?
We covered the Convoy fleet at number 7. The Hero truck gets its own entry at number 2, because its fate is one of the more pointless losses in this list and deserves to stand separately. The 1977 Mack RS712 LST was the truck used for the majority of the promotional materials, the close-up work, the shots where the rubber duck needed to look exactly right. EMI Films, who financed the production, had it designed specifically for the film. After production wrapped, it was returned to Mack Truck Corporation, who restored it completely. Back to showroom condition, every detail correct, the truck as it had appeared on screen. And then, Mack sold it, and whoever bought it converted it into a dump truck. A truck that the manufacturer had fully restored to film-accurate condition, that had been the promotional centerpiece of a film that grossed 10 times its budget, was put into a commercial hauling service and has not been publicly seen since. This is not a mysterious disappearance. This is a working truck that got used as a working truck. The rubber duck drove off a bridge at the end of Convoy. The hero truck became a dump truck. Neither of them came back. One of them at least had the dignity of doing it on camera. Truck number 1. Duel was Steven Spielberg's feature debut. Made in 11 days, aired as an ABC Movie of the Week on November 13, 1971, and subsequently given a theatrical release with 16 additional minutes added for international markets. The film follows a traveling salesman who is relentlessly pursued across the California desert by a tanker truck, driven by a man whose face is never fully seen. Spielberg auditioned trucks for the antagonist role the same way a director auditions actors. He chose the 1957 Peterbilt 281 specifically for its long hood, its split windshield, its round headlights, the features that gave it a face, and therefore a menace. The multiple license plates bolted across the front bumper, Spielberg explained, were meant to imply that the driver was a serial killer who had collected them from previous victims. Each shooting day, a crew progressively dirtied the truck. Oil, grease, dead insects applied to the bodywork, making it uglier and more threatening as filming progressed. The 1957 Peterbilt drove off the cliff on the final day of the shoot. The original villain truck destroyed itself in the service of the ending. A backup 1960 Peterbilt 281 with a Cummins engine had been running alongside the production, but was removed from set on that same final day and survived, sitting for approximately 30 years before entering private ownership. The theatrical release truck, a 1962 Peterbilt 351, sourced when Universal needed the additional 16 minutes, had the most documented post-production journey of the three. After its filming work concluded, it also sat for years. In 2003, it was acquired by Neil Lasasso. It passed to Dan Bruno. In 2009, it reached its current owner, Brad Wyke, a classic truck collector and the organizer of the Southern Classic Truck Show in Lincolnton, North Carolina. Wyke modified the truck's horn to match the one on the original 1957 Peterbilt that went off the cliff. He wanted the surviving truck to sound like the one that did not. He owns a Plymouth Valiant to complete the pairing. The truck is displayed annually at the Lincolnton Show. It still runs, the most menacing vehicle in the history of American cinema. The truck that a 23-year-old Spielberg made the lead actor of his debut film is in North Carolina. It's doing fine, and it still sounds like itself. Thank you for watching. We appreciate every single view and every comment, and the channel grows because you share it. Subscribe to Cinebuster for more stories like this one, and we'll see you in the next one.